The key 15-word leadership philosophy that I've used that I think is successful, I call the 3 Bs. When people build their leadership philosophy, oftentimes they think it needs to be deep, something super complex, because they want something that can cover every situation and detailed enough that their team can rely on it in their absence. So people write paragraphs, pages, these super long explanations. But what I've learned in over 4 years of command and getting able to see leaders from across the world, that oftentimes clarity can beat complexity. You see, you don't need a paragraph. You don't even need a sentence. A leadership philosophy can be less than 15 words. And I used one, and I think it worked. And after all these years of all the teams I've led, I would only change one word if I were to do it again. 3 simple principles that shaped how I led my company from the 101st, and I've taken it to every organization I've been through since. And I still use it today, whether I'm talking to a team or I'm talking to my daughters. Because if you have the true principles that work, they can apply to any situation. So let's talk about this. Most leaders overcomplicate leadership. They think more words means clarity, but in reality, complexity actually can create confusion, and confusion slows people down. See, under pressure, people don't rise to complexity. They fall back to clarity into their training. And that's why your philosophy has to be simple enough that your team can remember it, repeat it, act on it when you're not there. If you watched my previous video where I talk about the business card method, the concept is pretty simple. You want a philosophy that you can fit on a business card. And if you watch that video, I'll go into a lot more details about why that's important. But it comes down to a key thing. You need something that can be remembered, that can be shared, that can be actually internalized. So that's where I came up with this concept. This is the 3 Bs. I tried to strip down everything that I knew from leadership, from experiences, from parenting, from the Bible, and make something that can be applied to any situation. Begin with the basics, be in control, and be better every day. They're simple, but they're not easy. And if you can understand how to apply these 3, you can not only become a better leader, a better teammate, but it can help you in every aspect of your life. So let's talk about beginning with the basics. Beginning with the basics is the fundamental things that make something work. And so it applies in different ways. If you're an athlete, the basics are the stretching, the workout, nutrition, those type of things. If maybe you're a military person, it deals with the shooting, the moving, the communicating, the basics of how to be a good soldier, Marine, Airman, or Guardian. And if you're a person, it also still applies. The basics of the Bible, or whatever religious text that you use, treating others the way that they want to be treated, and the golden rules. These are the simple basics that are the foundation to being successful at whatever task you're doing. And I always start with the basics because a lot of times we see the fancy things. We see the advanced marketing or the cool things or the swag, but if you can't do the fundamentals right, you can't move on to anything else. I had an incredible sergeant major that I got to work with across the 101st and in the 75th. And he always talked about the fundamentals. If we can't do the fundamentals, we can't do anything else. And I didn't understand it at first until I was able to work with some of the highest level athletes and leaders. And what I realized was, yes, they were able to do some absolutely incredible things, but what made them truly special is they could do the little things right. And not only could they do them right, but they practiced them until they couldn't get them wrong. No matter where you are in life, as a parent, coach, teacher, you have to focus on the fundamentals and you have to have the basic things right. And when you do those things right, you'll realize that the advanced things come so much easier. Now, the second one is called be in control. When we look at leadership, from a military perspective, a common idiom is a leader is responsible for everything the unit does and fails to do. When I used to talk to my subordinates, I would always remind them, hey, you can't control the rain, but you can control if you actually bring an umbrella. And that applies to whatever aspects in life that you're in. This is really based on the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can change, and the knowledge to know the difference. When you're in control, you have to be able to separate the controllables from the uncontrollables. But the controllables, you have to take lead. Every situation has a leader. If there's 2 people there, one of them has to be in charge. And if there's only one person, there's still a leader because you have to lead yourself. Being in control of the controllable variables is essential to success in any endeavor. Now, the third one is being better every day. This is an acknowledgement of 2 things. For one, the continual attempt to grow, to expand, to improve. But it's also a reminder that you're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. The key is to learn from those mistakes. One of the things that I truly believe is you only fail when you quit. Everything else is just a lesson. And so as long as you're taking those lessons to improve and get better, then you're hitting the intent. I did have a leader who said an interesting phrase when mistakes happen, and I thought that really encompasses a great idea. When someone would make a mistake, he would always say, I know you don't hate the organization. And I was like, why would you say that? And it made sense after I got a little bit more mature. Because when he was saying that, he was actually talking to two people, that person and himself. You see, by telling them he knows that they don't hate the organization, he's telling them that he understands that they made a mistake and it wasn't intentional. They were going about it in their best approach, and they just happened to fall short. That occurs. It also is a reminder to himself as a leader that, hey, you shouldn't punish people because they make mistakes. Everyone is moving in the best intentions. They're trying their best, and that is the assumption you should make. Now, one of the stipulations he would say is, as long as you don't make the same mistake twice, because then I have to question you. And that highlights an important aspect. You have to learn from your mistakes, because to continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, that's just foolish. So if you've been counting, you'll realize that I said under 15 words and we're only at 11, because this is the change that I would have wanted to make. The vision after these three was prepare, win. Everything that we do is preparation. Not only preparation for tomorrow, but preparation for a future that we can't see. And we never want to waste any of that time. And the thing about winning is that is the goal. Now, winning does not always mean a scoreboard, but it means about improving and reaching our goals. Another way of looking at win is understanding what's important now. And so this is what we're always striving towards, what is actually important. However, this isn't the best way to sell this, because if I could do it all again, I would have added one more word. So I would still have prepare and I would still have win, but I would have drawn a line across the top and I would have put we. Because when we look at an organization, it is about the team, and everything is tied to that because the team is the overarching goal. And so I would say we prepare and we win. And when we can do these things together, that's how we truly reach the mountaintop. But now, even though you heard these 14 words, understanding is not the same as actually applying, because some principles misapplied, they can actually create bad leadership. They can actually create even more problems than before. So let's talk about some of the common misuses, some of the issues that happen. Let's talk about control what you can. Now, if you come from a military background, you understand this common phrase: leaders are responsible for everything an organization does and fails to do. And while that's true, it shouldn't turn to you trying to control everything, because that can very easily lead to micromanagement. It goes back to that serenity prayer. You have to have the knowledge to know the difference. And for the things that you cannot control, it's important to communicate down to your subordinates so they understand the left and right limits, to yourself to make sure you're not trying to take too much on and micromanage, and to your leaders for which you understand that you can't control, because maybe they're the ones who can, or maybe they can help influence it in some way. Understanding the left and right limits and not getting to a level of micromanagement is a huge thing to take into consideration when applying this as a leader. That also goes into accepting what you can. Don't turn this into passivity. There still requires leadership. People still need to step up, and don't let someone try to subjugate or abdicate their role. When in charge, take charge. That's critical. And the last one that can be misused is we talk about being better every day. That doesn't mean make mistakes on purpose. That means that you should try, that you should push, but that doesn't mean just being reckless. As a leader, you have to ensure that your subordinates are following a path, a goal, a plan, because practice doesn't actually make perfect. Deliberate practice does. And what deliberate practice means is you're moving towards something, you're critiquing, you're growing, and you're seeking to make improvement. And so when we think about being better every day, you gotta make sure you're being better at the right things. If you're a high school teacher, being better at Madden doesn't actually matter unless you're in charge of like an esports program. And so think about what are the things that we need to be better at and focus on those. Let's talk about the practical application. How do you actually make this work for you? I would say start simple. Ask yourself daily, what can I control? What can I accept? Am I beginning with the basics? How do I improve today? And after you use it for yourself, internalize it. Make sure it actually works. Continue to act on it, and then you'll be able to coach it to your team by example, because your example is the most important part. But I'm curious, are there other things that you've seen that work better? Maybe other acronyms or leadership principles? I would love to know in the comments down below. And if there's ever a leadership problem or question that you have that I can potentially help, please let me know that as well. Because at the end of the day, this is about making better leaders and helping you learn from the mistakes that I had so that you don't have to make them in the future. But until next time, I wish you and your leadership journey the best. God bless and peace.